Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply, and this video is to bring you a closer look at the IVES number 230B26D sliding door edge pull. This is an IVES product. This is a edge pull, a very classic, ubiquitous piece of equipment that you'll see primarily in residential applications. I suppose you would see it in maybe commercial closet, applications, but probably installed in applications well before the advent of handicap compliance. There's nothing about this that's approved for use by the the physically impaired at all. But this is a ubiquitous edge pull. You're going to see the 230. When someone says edge pull, 230 is the first thing that comes to my mind. I don't know how many decades IVES has been making this, but it is several and many decades. A very common piece of hardware. It is, of course, made by other people. I don't know who made it first. IVES is a company that dates to the 19th century. They could have made it first, but there are several copies of it all over the place. So what does this do? Well, you have a sliding door. You call it a pocket door in a residential application. The term pocket door means something different in the commercial world, whereas a pocket door, you will see pocket doors in hospitals. So if you ever see a pair of doors in a hospital, I've seen them in hotels as well. But the concept is when the doors open, if you were to study those doors, a door will normally encroach into the clear opening space. But a door hung on Harmon hinges or pocket hinges will take that door because they move the vertical axis of pivoting out and away. When that door opens, it actually moves to a position so that it does not encroach into the clear opening space. So the term pocket is used differently depending on the application. This would be certainly a residential type application. So you've got a residential pocket door, or a door that comes out of a pocket, slides out of a pocket, and you need some way to get that pulled out. Well, you can just get your fingernail, your fingertip underneath there. You can pull that door right out with you. And obviously in the face of the door, you'll have some sort of a flush pull on each side of the door, finger pulls, whatever the case might be. But common residential application, no privacy, would be generally applied to such an opening. The IVES 230. They must have made millions of them over the decades. So let's take some basic dimensional properties, and we'll talk about some variations of it. Overall height, about 3 7/8. Overall width of the faceplate now, so just heavy on 3/4, pushing 13/16. An overall depth of this item when it is installed, when it's in its flush state, about 1 5/8. Okay. Now what's important to note here is the dimension from the hole for the one screw down to the other hole. You're going to have about 3 1/8 of an inch clear opening. And also be mindful, the width of the plate that the works are attached to is not the same width as the finished plate itself. It looks like it's closer to about 11/16. So there's a reason why I say that to you, which will be apparent in a moment. A couple of screws will be included. Okay. Now let's switch to the screen view where we can talk about the extended description and the supporting documentation. So this is the item that we're looking at here on the screen, edge pull. And what we have here is the dimensional properties, which we've covered. 3/4 inch width allows installation on narrow as well as standard doors. What they're saying there is if you have 1 3/8 interior doors, yeah, for sure that's going to work. And that would be the typical thickness for residential anyway. Spring automatically returns lever flush with plate. Made of solid brass and according to my magnet, it's certainly not magnetic. But I'll tell you, there is a very slight amount of magnetism to this unit, which makes me think that it's, and plus the hue of the metal on the backside tells me that it might this item here might actually be made of stainless steel, because stainless steel will actually pick up a small amount of magnetic property when the material's not been passivated. So this brass would be utterly non-magnetic, but there's some attraction here, and it's not the plating of the material over brass as far as I'm concerned. This, because it's 6.2 satin chrome or nickel, it's very likely they've used stainless steel for this. It's just a theory, but something needs to explain the fact that it is marginally, very marginally magnetic. Okay, so meets ANSI A150, ANSI BHMA A156.10. The A156 series of documents published by ANSI BHMA basically say that this item has met the requirements of the document, etc., etc., which will probably have some language in it that talks about the base material and the function and some sort of reliability and durability guidelines, etc. I don't know what the 14 publication specifically states of the A156 series, but you will certainly find references to ANSI BHMA standards, and you get to the ANSI web store, and you're most definitely going to find the A156 series, because it pertains to builder's hardware. This is the .14 document, A156.14. I don't think that I own this document. It's been published in different years. Apparently the 2019 is the most current year. Sliding and folding door hardware. So I don't actually know what that document refers to. Let's see if I actually do own it, however. A156.14. I don't own the 14 variant. These other extensions I own. Anyway, if you needed to dive into that, I would suggest that you most certainly dive into that, at least for fun. So we are looking at the fact they're saying it's made of brass. I question that. Satin chrome finish. It is certainly quite compatible with satin chrome. If my magnet didn't tell me any different, I wouldn't question the satin chrome nature of this necessarily. Now, supporting documentation. Let's take a look at what we have for supporting documentation. Okay, supporting documentation. Let's start with product brochure. And this will be out of the IVES full-line catalog. That just shows items that are related to your edge pull. You have your garden variety, an elbow catch, that's not related. Not that I can see. Flush pull, finger pull, that's tiny, that's 1 inch. That's the 221 is that ubiquitous flush pull. The 222 is nice as well. 223 you see ever so often. I wouldn't mind, that model myself. 227 is elegant. Now a pocket sliding door bolt. That's a neat little doodad. Not a lot of people know what that does. And that's basically going to give you privacy. So we have a video in the site, no doubt, of an IVES 42. And if you're interested to see what a pocket door bolt does, you would be able to view the video here. Nope. IVES 42. It's probably in satin chrome. Let's take a look. IVES 42. Right there. IVES 42 pocket door bolt is what we've called that. And that's an interesting piece of equipment. Okay, so yeah, not to get too sidetracked, but the 42 goes along with the item that we're talking about. Okay, now as we return back to what we're working on, actually, that's our product catalog. Anyway, the 230 here shows you the different finishes that this is available in. 605 for polished brass, 606 satin brass, 609 antique brass, 612 satin bronze, 613 oil rubbed bronze, 619 satin nickel. Polished chrome is 625 and satin chrome is 626, made from solid brass. Okay, spring automatically returns lever flush with plate. Let's go up the column here to installation. Okay, this paperwork is old. This is from the 90s for sure, if not earlier than that. But it does kind of show us what your installation is going to look like, even though you can't read these dimensions. But you are going to make a two-step sort of preparation in the door as they show here. Let's hope that the cut sheet gives us a better idea. Oh, it does. Okay, so we were wondering how many decades. I'm going to go with 7. October 18th of 1950. Okay, so this piece of equipment has been around for a while. They made a change in 1991. Okay, they did something in 2003, added 1.1 in your C right here. They added 1.1. So that dimension was always missing. You don't need it, but obviously someone couldn't, run the math, I suppose, and determine it. 3 7/8 minus 0.75 minus 2 inch, 1.1, right? Okay, so 1950 is when this drawing was first published that we have access to. And this document is really going to serve as our governing document when it comes to installation. So all I've done here is I've rotated it so that we can see what it would look like. And you're going to basically make two preparations. You're going to make the body preparation, okay, and then you're going to make the you're going to make 3 preparations. Let's turn that around again. You're going to make 3 preparations. You're going to make 2 body preparations, okay, 1.1 wide, 1.1 long, 3/4 wide. The depth of that prep is 1 11/16. That makes sense? Yeah, that makes sense. That would work. So the 1.687 from here down to here, inch and 11/16. 7/16 down here. And then you can pick up you'll have to do a little bit of math. You've got 9/16 from the edge of the plate to the beginning of that prep. So I would be prepping the depth of this first. And then I would come back and do my 7/16 deep prep, the length. So 3 7/8 minus, this is probably 15, I would say it's probably 15-30 seconds. Okay, this would be 9/16. That will give you this prep, again, 3/4 wide. Then you're going to do the face plate only, and that's coming up with, I would be doing it 0.078, a 16th plus a 28th, a very small amount. I'm putting my caliper on the faceplate, and the caliper tells me that it's 0.083. So I'm going to be right at about 3/32 of an inch depth. 1 divided by 32 times 3. Sorry. 1 divided by 32 times 3. Now, not quite that much. 1 divided by 64 times 5. Yeah, About 5/64 of an inch is what I'm going to be looking at for the depth here. You'll have to do a little bit of finish work with your chisel to get around, because you'll notice that it's deeper down here because of the attached metal that is holding the spring to return the lever back flush with the unit. So that's how I've always done it. I would prep my faceplate, and then I would come back with my chisel and just clean that out. Now, if you recall, I mentioned earlier how the prep on the inside is a little bit smaller than the outside prep, which is discovered here. If you wanted to take that 3/4 for the body preparations and actually make it like 11/16, you could, and give yourself a little shoulder for the faceplate to sit on. You could. I would do it. I'm also, guilty of it taking longer than it ought to, but I want to have that closed off. I don't want to see any sort of space between the edge of my plate and my prep. I would personally make it a little bit smaller. I'm not an advocate of forcing someone to send you hardware before you machine it, because if we're woodworkers, we can machine by a template. However, the reality of the matter is why sometimes people want it is not an inability to be able to read a simple technical drawing. It's because there are micro variations in hardware. And my caliper tells me, that is a different dimension than what's drawn here. Okay? And let's face it, if the hardware doesn't fit, the first person they're going to call is the guy who machined it. And so if you have an opportunity to have the hardware, I pull out my caliper and I would do a reality check on the hardware and make any adjustments necessary. And it's usually not, but I also usually find that I can do something a little bit smarter to suit my requirements, okay, rather than just this inelegant large prep that's here. You could give yourself a little shoulder here and then come down. So that's how you're going to prep this. Overall dimensions. It's interesting to me that in 1950 they would have been putting metric dimensions as well. I wasn't alive at the mid 20th century, but I would only expect to see empirical, and I would expect to see it written out as fractions. So who knows? When these dimensions were added, and it could just be the rough drawing. Is that 1950 drawing? Pretty neat, though. There's no doubt about that. Template drawing. So that talks about our installation. That talks about how to go. Now, how to go about doing it is a simple router. You're going to use a plunge router. Porter Cable makes a really great template that I have used and owned several and many of over many, many years. I don't remember the part number, but we're going to find it right now. I don't need a template guide, although you will need a collet. Here it is, the 517, the good old 517. Okay, I would use, this would be my weapon of choice. I would then set the opening size to suit my finished size, and based on the collet that I was using. 1/2-inch 2-flute carbide plunge router would be great. You could do your body prep with that, and unless you have a CNC machine, then have at it. That's great, but that's a nice way to be able to do it easily. And then you can adapt this for many other preparations. Flush bolts. You wouldn't do hinges with it. Well, you wouldn't do butt hinges with it because you can't open up the face of the unit far enough. But Porter Cable makes, they make a hinge butt template kit as well. It's a great little template that's there. You can do it you will reset it. You'll do your body prep, this deep body prep, the shallower body prep, and then you'll do your faceplate prep. And then if you were like me and you do a ton of those, you would have one Porter Cable 517 set up for every individual preparation, and then you aren't changing anything, but you really have to have a lot of turnover to dedicate a tool to that. Okay, so back at the item we're talking about here, link to the manufacturer's page. When you pull that up, not only all of the IVES products that we sell, but a link to the manufacturer's website, as well as a link to the full product catalog and other encyclopedic documents. I had mentioned that they are a company from the 19th century. There was an 1896 catalog to prove it. There's a 1904 catalog as well. IVES Installation Instructions Master Index, Template Master Index. I bet in here we're going to find some really old templates as well. What does it really mean? It just means that IVES been around for a long time. Their name is quite synonymous, tried and true. Wow, 438 pages of templates. I don't know how many of them are not current or modern. But the IVES today is very much different than the IVES of yesteryear, that's to be sure. IVES used to be very synonymous with window hardware. Here's one from 1969 on a dust-proof strike. But they have evolved into the IVES 820. This is an 820 push latch. This was discontinued many years ago. They're still out there. People still have these. There is a cupboard latch from 1950. Same gentleman who drew our 230. A lot of templates in here. That's really great. Let's finish up this video on camera. But we were saying master templates, installation instructions. Let's finish up this video on camera. Okay, in conclusion, the name IVES is synonymous with trim and auxiliary hardware. As I was mentioning earlier, they're not the IVES that they were a few decades ago. IVES, once upon a time, did not sell pivots or continuous geared hinges or pin and barrel hinges, and many of the trim and auxiliary items that they do now. IVES is under the umbrella of Allegion. IVES' sister companies would be Schlage, LCN, Von Duprin, Glenn Johnson, Zero, Dormatic, Falcon, who knows who else, many other companies. What's nice about IVES is that I have received some good technical support from them, and that goes with the other sister products, namely Schlage, LCN, and Von Duprin. Those companies are world-class technical support, and you get some good tech support from IVES as well, because you get the impression that the Schlage guys are over there and the LCN guys are over there, and while they're not, they definitely communicate. So that culture of excellence when it comes to technical support bleeds into the IVES product line. And it's just trim and auxiliary hardware, right? But yeah, they make some stuff that's complicated. I am a fan of their pivots. If you are new to pivots, probably names that you've already heard, what IVES does differently is they make all the same pivots, center hung, offset, 200 pound, 500 pound, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But what they do differently is their approach to designing the template or installation instructions is far less intimidating. So if it's your first time, rather than go to the names that you already know, maybe look at IVES, because you might say, okay, that's not such a head scratcher after all. And if you have any questions on your IVES pivots, reach out to us. We'd be happy to help you. Any questions on the IVES 230, Edge Pull, or any other IVES product, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you.